To give you a simple example, I believe we humans naturally feel envy. Everybody feels envy. We don't like to admit it. I'm envious that Ryan sold more, is listed higher on the business bestseller list on Amazon than I am.
Ryan Holiday, who was just here.
Yeah.
And you kind of mentored him early on. He fixed your Wikipedia page. He was the kid.
Yeah.
He still is, actually.
And now he's outshone me. Anyway, I can admit that I feel envy. And so I want you to get to that same place. Mm-hmm. And where it comes from is, it's the chimpanzee in us. It's been shown that primates are very attuned to other animals in their clan, and they're constantly comparing themselves. Who's the alpha chimp? Who has more than I have? We are, by our nature, the way our minds work, continually comparing ourselves to other people who, they have a better job, they're making more money, their book is selling more, etc. And that's the source of envy, right? I mean, that's deep underneath the source of envy. But that constant comparing to people, which is so endemic on social media, has the potential to be turned into something positive. It can turn into the desire to compete, and instead of envying what that other person has, to actually achieve it for yourself and to emulate great people and try and, instead of envying some really good writer, why don't I become that good writer and sell enough books so I don't have to feel envy? I try and show other ways how that comparing mechanism can actually tap into our higher nature.
Envy was the chapter that hit me the hardest. I actually just scrolled way down in my iPad notes here because I thought, we may or may not get to this.
Okay.
This chapter really spoke to me, and I'm almost ashamed to admit it, which actually is something you predict in the chapter on envy, is that it's this emotion where we're so ashamed of it, and we're so good at hiding it because we're ashamed of it, that even when we feel it, we go, I'm feeling anger, I'm feeling self-righteousness, I'm feeling my sense of justice wants to take this person down because they're bad.
Right.
Really, it's like, why does he have a jet and I don't? But then we go, that can't be it. I'm not a child. I don't feel that way. I don't think that way.
Right.
I must be reaching up for something else because I don't want to think of myself as this lowly, envious jerk face. I want to think I'm above this. So it comes out as another emotion, which makes it harder for us to be aware of in the moment and shine a light on it and scrub it out.
Right.
So it's particularly insidious and dangerous, I think, for a lot of people, especially people who are achieving something, because we're the ones that really, and I should just speak for myself, we're the ones that really think we're above that. We've worked on that. That's not an issue for us, so we don't have to think about it anymore. And yet we're probably the people that feel it's some of the strongest because we're just one rung closer on the ladder. Where that brass ring is just right within reach for a lot of us.
Well, leaders, people who have attained the heights of power, are constantly feeling envy. I talk in the book, I have a chapter that Michael Eisner is sort of the icon for, of grandiosity. And he was the man who was so powerful, who ran this mega entertainment conglomerate, who had everything he wanted. And he had somebody working for him, Jeffrey Katzenberg, who was the head of the Disney studio. And Eisner was riddled with envy for him because he thought that more attention was suddenly going to Katzenberg than to me. People suddenly saw him as the golden boy. And yet he was his boss. So bosses are often feeling envy for people who are below them. So if people who are attained the heights of power are riddled with envy, you can imagine what's happening to everybody else.
Right.
Oftentimes in life, somebody will do kind of a surprisingly ugly, nasty turn to us. They'll sabotage our work. They'll say something ugly behind our back. They'll literally manipulate us in some way. And we'll get drawn into the emotions of that all, and we'll go, what an asshole, or, and then we don't really understand where it came from. And most of the time where it does actually come from is envy.
Yeah.
And we can't unravel that knot because we didn't see it originally. So I try and show you in the book, I don't want to make you paranoid, but I make the distinction between active and passive envy. Passive envy is what we feel every day naturally. As we look on Facebook and we see other people are having a great vacation, we go, God, their life is better than mine, damn it. We feel that every day and we need to admit it. It's very human. And we don't do it, doesn't lead to anything bad necessarily. Active envy can happen to anybody, but generally there are people who are envier types, and I describe them in that chapter. And they're prone to feeling such strong envy that they act on it. They not only just sort of feel it, they give you a comment that is targeted to make you feel bad.
Right.
You know? Like I remember early on when the 48 Laws of Power, people would say, boy, Robert, you know, that book must be selling really well. You must be making a lot of money with it. And it was sort of a form of praise, but hidden behind it was this idea that I was kind of soulless, that I was writing it for money.
Right. They're deliberately cheapening
Yeah.
your accomplishment by relating it to something base, like,
Yeah.
oh, congrats on winning an Oscar. Now you'll get a lot of higher paid roles, or
Right.
so it's like, well, I did a good job in that, but thanks for ignoring that part.
Right. And so, you know, a couple things will happen. You'll start to internalize it. You go, maybe they're right. Maybe there's something wrong with me. Or you'll kind of attack them or whatever. But what you don't realize is that it comes from a place of envy. They actually envy you. And if you know that, you can prepare and make sure that you don't become friends with them. And you can also not take it so personally. You can see where it's really coming from.